Ecclesiastes in the Bible. It talks about how there's a time for all sorts of different things. A time for living, a time for dying, a time for healing, and a time for killing. And right now is the time for talking about movies.
Yes!
And that's exactly what we're going to do. We have a couple of guests with us today. This is Steve and a regular of ours, Gavin. So would you all like to say a few words about yourselves to our non-existent audience?
Yes, you're a first-time guest, so tell us who you are, what you're up to.
Hey, I'm Steve. I am originally from a little town called The Villages, Florida. Shout out to the STD capital of the world. I just graduated Florida State with a dual degree economics, Middle Eastern studies, so I am completely unqualified. But I did do a little bit of a minor in English.
Well, so maybe double majored in this.
Oh, yeah. So who knows? Maybe I can pull something back from when I was reading literature.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you just put your tongue near my ear?
I swear.
We're looking to you for some in-depth analysis on the screenplay.
Maybe we can talk about the economics of Rome.
Yeah, the economics. Hey, economics do play into this movie a little bit with the whole like selling of the grain and like the money put into the arena and stuff. So like it was a financial thing.
Gavin?
For sure. But anyway, Gavin.
Yo, Gavin, I'm back for the fourth time?
I think it's fourth time.
I think it's
Wait,
fourth time.
we
It's
have
been on a bunch of
Braveheart,
times.
Alexander, 300. Yeah, 4.
Wow, 4 times. So, reigning classics, the aficionado. What's the word I should use?
Expert?
Expert? I'm not an expert.
Semi-expert.
I haven't done this in a while.
Knowledgeable person.
But,
An amateurist hobbyist.
but I teach 4th grade at a classical school here in
That's
Tallahassee.
pretty cool.
And I'm enjoying my winter break, watching Gladiator with the boys.
We did a study recently on our demographics, and we found out that the average reading level is the 4th grade level. So,
Hey,
I thought you were about to say
respect for your audience.
No, the audience was going to be 4th grade. I was like, oh sweet, I can feel to that.
Well, we haven't mentioned yet, but you probably looked at the thumbnail before you clicked this video, so you know that we are talking about Gladiator. And before we get into it, I've got to tell you a little story, a little tragedy that happened. You see, once upon a time,
Hey, yo.
1 year ago, in December, we had Gavin and his brother Grant. And
God bless him and keep him.
they were at my house. We reviewed this movie. We watched the whole movie, and we were 45 minutes into the review.
If not more.
If not more.
We were in like the history section, so it was deep.
We
At
were
2 a.m.
We were excited, man. And then all of a sudden, the computer blipped. And the video was not saved because of a lack of storage. We have been warning this ever since. The invaluable insights that went down that day are the stuff of legend. But unfortunately, unlike the Oppenheimer episode, it will never be recovered.
No.
So,
The Oppenheimer one was some good maneuvering by you.
it was,
That.
yeah.
That was cool.
I'm basically a tech genius because of
Yes.
that. But,
we're back though.
but
Quiet.
today is our meager attempt to make up for this just absolutely infinite failure.
But we got Steve now.
But
Yeah,
we
got
have
Steve.
Steve
We got
now.
Steve.
That's the
Instead of
first
Grant,
time. By the way, I want everyone to know that's the first time he's ever called me Steve. It has been Steven for the past year and a half.
I'll probably relapse.
So, without any
we also have to tell the story about when we're at Gavin's place right now. When we knocked on the door, you gotta tell that story.
He just was a little skeptical of us.
Steve thought we were wrong.
Listen, let me just say, this is not the safest neighborhood. It's safe enough that I'm willing to live here, not so safe I'm willing to trust my neighbors, okay?
There we go.
So when strangers are walking up to the unit next door, which is empty, I got questions.
Okay.
That's fair, especially in a shady part of town.
Yeah. But we have since befriended
Downtown
Steve.
Tallahassee. Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, let's get in. Let's get the specs.
All
and then
right.
we'll
So,
start getting-
as always, we'll open up by talking about just what the movie's about. So, this movie is about this guy, this Roman general, and set in, I think, 188, around 180 AD is when this movie is set, according to the opening text. It's about this guy named Marcus. That's Aurelius. Maximus Decimus Meridius, a Roman general. During the barbarian campaigns of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He's this Roman general, and at the very beginning of the movie, Marcus Aurelius tells him that he would like for him to become the protector of Rome, so that Rome can be spared the brutality and pretty much this foolishness of his son Commodus, who would be the next in line to the throne by
He's not a moral man.
Hereditary. And because he's not a moral man, so he can't be the. He's also just a creep. He can't be the emperor, and so Commodus doesn't like this, so he basically kills his father when he's told the news. Maximus, though, sees through his scheme and stands up to him, but unfortunately he's surrounded by a bunch of Praetorians and taken out to the forest to be executed. His family is killed. Thankfully, though, he escapes execution, and because they don't give him, they give him a soldier's death, and that lets him get out of there. You'll know what I mean if you've seen the movie. But he gets away, and you'll have to do the refresher. He gets away, but unfortunately he is his family dies, as I said, and he becomes a slave because he just kind of falls asleep in the desert. He gets picked up by these Arab traders. And he gets sold to this guy, and eventually he makes it back to Rome. He rises up to the gladiatorial arena and eventually reveals himself to Commodus and challenges him. It's a revenge story about, with a lot of really good human emotions to it, about Maximus's quest for revenge against Commodus.
Right.
That's what this movie is really about.
It's as y'all were discussing right before we went on air, it's actually a big part of film history because this movie brought the historical epic
back
to the 2000s.
Yeah, to the 2000s. It came out in 2000. I'll go through the specs.
I think it's actually pretty incredible that we've been talking about for historical movies for this long and haven't done Gladiator. It's the landmark movie of the genre.
Yeah. So
I'll
go through a few specs. The movie was directed by a pretty well-known director, Ridley Scott. He kind of is known for sci-fi movies and then historical epics. He's done The Martian and then he did Gladiator. So he has kind of a wide variety.
Did he do Alien too?
He did Alien. He's done a lot of sci-fi and historical epics are kind of his thing. But it was written. The screenplay was by three guys. The screenplay was by a triumvirate of gentlemen: David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. The story was written by David Franzoni, so they went off of his ideas. It was produced by Douglas Wick, David Franzoni, and Branko Lustig. It stars, of course, Russell Crowe as Maximus in most would say his career-defining role and his best to date, most people would say. He did win the Oscar for Best Actor for this. It also co-stars Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, and he also was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. It stars Connie Nielsen as Lucilla, the daughter of Marcus Aurelius and the sister of Commodus. Oliver Reed, who unfortunately passed away before the movie came out, actually before they finished filming the scenes. We can talk about that a little bit later. And he plays Proximo, who is the gladiatorial, kind of the merchant who buys Maximus as the gladiator. And then it also has Derek Jacobi, Jaimin Hunsu, and Richard Harris plays Marcus Aurelius. Cinematography was by John Matheson. It was edited by Pietro Scalia. That guy has actually done a bunch of movies that we've done. He edited all those Oliver Stone movies we did, actually. Yep, production companies, DreamWorks Pictures, which actually, they're more known for their animation, like DreamWorks, but they do have a live-action part of their studio. So, Universal Pictures, Scott Free Productions, that's Ridley's company, and then Red Wagon Entertainment. It was distributed by DreamWorks Distribution in the United States and Canada. And then in South Korea, it was distributed through CJ Entertainment. I don't know how all that distribution stuff works, but
basically, someone needs to manage all of the contracts with the different movie theaters in country.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and then Universal Pictures was the international distributor through United International Pictures. It was released, as Steve alluded to, in 2000, and it premiered on May 1st in Los Angeles, and it went wide on May 5th in the U.S. and the 12th of May in the UK. We watched the extended edition, so it adds about 15 minutes to the movie. It's about 171 minutes, whereas the original theatrical cut was 155 minutes. However, I think it is important to note that this is not a director's cut. It's not like Kingdom of Heaven, where Ridley was totally dissatisfied with his theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is perfectly good. This one just adds a few extra little tidbits to it. It was a co-production between the U.S. and the U.K. English is the primary language of the movie, despite it being obviously in the Roman Empire. It had a pretty big budget for 2000, $103 million, and it brought in $465.5 million. So yeah, it was a financially successful movie. So without further ado, we can go ahead and get into the positives. I feel like we should let Steve go first with his biggest
and we have to recognize that there is now a new movie.
Yes, there is, and me and Nate are going to see that, and we will be reviewing that as soon as we
review that tonight. The first time we've ever done back-to-back reviews.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's going to be awesome.
Yep. So Steve, do you want to go first? What's your biggest positive?
So to start with, the film is just beautiful. right? The director of cinematography, who did you say it was?
John Matheson.
Did an amazing job of
I'll
staging
say
the
the
songs and kind of getting everything to come together. Honestly, you know what? I'm not going to comment on the second one, but I think
Yeah, we don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
So Nate has not seen the second one. So we're gonna do our best not to spoil anything from the second one.
I think in the cinematography alone, you see a lot of homages to earlier versions of the genre. So one of the things that like I was very taken with was kind of the way the film almost reminds you of the movies back in the 50s and 60s that are just absolutely gorgeous. The one that kept coming to mind, particularly when they were in the desert, was Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, yeah.
Where if you're watching that movie, it is a visually stunning movie. And this movie just tries, like, it absolutely hits it out of the park, kind of keeping it in that theme of kind of those broad light getting cameras. Man, I wish I knew more about cinematography to talk about that more in depth. But just down to the fundamentals of the shooting itself, it was brilliant. Staging was very good. Early on, we were a little distracted because I was trying to be a host in this home of mine. And they kept pausing the movie, and every single time they would pause it, they were just like, "Man, this scene looks amazing."
We paused it
It's
on
so...
this one shot that Gavin really.
Yeah.
It was like a landscape shot. It was the battle scene where you can see the fire.
Fire in the back.
Yes, that was
up
sick.
front.
That could be a wallpaper for sure.
So that was wonderful. It's a very well acted film. Sorry about that, Gavin.
I think that was gonna be everybody's.
It's gonna be everyone's, right? Because it's a very well acted film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in some ways, though, the acting is at least hindered to a modern viewer because it is very reliant on the stage-based idea of acting where you kind of just are the character. It's very interesting. Particularly early on, we see it in kind of... Who was the actor for Marcus Aurelius?
Richard Harris, who actually played Dumbledore.
Yeah, so you see it really clearly in the difference between Richard Harris's performance and Joaquin Phoenix's performance, in that Richard Harris is using a very like kind of traditional idea of representing the role without actually kind of becoming the role and embodying it. Where Joaquin Phoenix is known for the exact opposite. I mean, he's this brilliant method actor who really gets into the role, and he kind of he puts himself really deep into these roles, and he tries to experience the actor truthfully on stage. And I think kind of as a modern viewer, we're very, very used to the type of performance that Joaquin Phoenix gives. It makes it hard, particularly early when those older actors who come from a different school of thought, it makes it hard for us to believe them almost because it has a different effect. I think my comment early on was that like this dialogue feels like it's written as if it was a play.
Yeah.
But as the movie went on, that felt less so, and I realized it was the performances more than anything.
Yeah. And a lot of scenes at the beginning were set up as like one-on-one scenes.
And again, like those are brilliant actors. I don't want to discredit them, but it's a different school of thought that's not very common nowadays, and so it just feels foreign to us.
Where do you think Russell falls in that spectrum?
That's a good question.
So I don't know about Russell. Because I think Russell is a brilliant actor who has been shown throughout his career to kind of be typecast a little bit into the badass / muscle person, right? And he does that role very, very well. I haven't seen him do a drama, like a pure kind of
like not action drama. This would be more of a straight up drama.
Like I haven't seen him do something where
it's a
that edge is there.
That is a good
haven't
movie.
seen A Beautiful Mind.
I would highly.
Did he act well in that movie?
Yes.
Is he in it?
He also almost won best actor again.
So I could be wrong about Russell Crowe.
Watch that one.
I'm only familiar about the movies that I've seen. But I think, at least from my perspective, I don't. Russell Crowe, I don't think necessarily has the range where we would know exactly what he's doing, but what he does very well.
I kind of I like compare him to Marcus Aurelius' acting more than I would think, and then like Lucilla is more close to Commodus.
Right, but he is thinking a little bit. He is thinking a little bit like Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, it's like you said, that improvised scene when his wife and children dies, when he goes up and touches the corpse. That's an actor living the character faithfully in the moment. Not. It's a little bit more of a different approach and perspective. Now, the way he handled it might be more in line with the older school, where he goes and asks permission, and so there's something interesting there. I'm not sure exactly where he would fall.
But I agree. So, Gavin, what's your biggest positive in the movie?
biggest positives are.
This is like one of your favorite movies.
Well, it
You
is.
gotta get that out of the way.
Because I'm a classics major,
I mean,
and
it's
you
my
don't
favorite
get
movie.
very good classics like ancient Rome movies.
Yeah.
Almost ever. It's super, super rare. And like, to nod back to Steven's point, is that like this movie does seem to like harken back to like some of the ancient, older styles of film. And like, I see the movie Spartacus all throughout this movie.
You know what movie also kind of has whispers in it too is the Ten Commandments.
Well, Ben-Hur.
Yeah,
Yes.
but like both of those movies though, I think were the same production company back in the day.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
It's like almost the Ben-Hur rivalry with like
Ten
this-
Commandments, Spartacus.
Yeah, that's
it's like this weird like
Lawrence of
mashup of
Arabia.
all of those.
Yeah.
I haven't seen.
I need to watch
it.
Bro,
I honestly
okay,
believe
bring me in for Lawrence of Arabia. That was my degree. That was the
That would be.
specific time
He would
period
kill
I
Yeah,
said.
that.
Middle East.
He
Bro.
would kill that.
Oh, it would be great.
It's
We
World.
would love it.
Basically, it's
It's-
World War One in the Middle East, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's also one of my favorite
Yeah.
movies.
Ooh. All that to
That's
say.
Priam from Troy plays though.
Oh.
Priam plays the main guy.
I hated Troy. So there's like very few classics movies. Like Troy, I hated. What are the?
You liked
Alexander,
you liked
I
300.
hated that movie.
He loved 300.
300 was okay, but
Yeah.
nothing is like compares to Gladiator. Like its representation of the classical world.
Yeah.
Its faithfulness to the story, it was pretty close to the history. All the sets, I think the sets are really cool.
One thing, just to touch on something you just said, I think is really is how Ridley Scott actually said that when he directed the movie, he wanted to go away from kind of like the portrayal of Rome being like people like drinking wine and just eating grapes and stuff. He wanted it to be a little bit a more gritty version.
Well, and he
like,
did
more realistic.
And he accomplishes it by like there's that entire first couple of scenes where Maximus is fighting. That is a real arena that you can go see to this day.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
Morocco, I believe.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah, so it's like a real arena where gladiators literally fought. And then like Russell Crowe gets out there and does his awesome performance and are you not entertained in that arena? So I don't know, that was really powerful and a really cool nod to all the classics lovers. And I also love the score.
Oh, Hans
score
Zimmer.
hits.
Hans Zimmer.
This score hits so hard.
Yeah.
So
Obviously,
gotta
yeah.
shout out to
And-
Hans.
Well, and you also made a comment too. It's Pirates of the Caribbean ripped it off, and it's like I would just like to point this out now to an audience of 0.
Hans Zimmer.
No. John Williams has pirated everything he's ever written. No. Dvorak number 4 or Dvorak number 9, 4th movement, same thing as Jaws. This was written before Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm pretty sure Pirates of the Caribbean was John Williams, right?
No, this is
Was it?
This is
Hans
Hans.
Well,
this
now I
is
sound like
Hans.
an absolute idiot. You know, guys,
this
so back up for a second. I want to make it very clear. Everything I say today, completely ignore it. I know. No. Don't lie. This is very serious. I can't misrepresent myself. I speak like an expert. I know nothing.
So to address your point, the movie Hans Zimmer did the score for this one.
Okay, cool.
And
Which
he
one
did-
came out first? Pirates of the Caribbean?
Gladiator came out first.
Okay.
He also did the scores to Pirates of the Caribbean.
But they
So
sound
the
the exact
the
same.
joke is that he plagiarized himself. Like he just.
Which he can do. Like, is that allowed? I can't do
so
that on
I-
papers. That's
so
illegal.
I actually do know a little bit about this. So you can't reuse the music if the studio owns the music and you're working with a different studio. Because you don't own the music.
Disney
Right.
definitely did Pirates of the Caribbean. Disney
Right.
did not do this movie.
Universal did this movie.
Universal. Or
But
Universe.
it's different enough that you have plausible deniability.
It is. It's not the exact. It's like a similar thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so your biggest positive is like just the atmosphere, the
Atmosphere,
sets.
classical representation, score, and sets.
Okay.
Sets are. I mean, the Coliseum is. Really
Oh my!
cool
The
too.
way they
is that
really-
CGI?
No, so they built a certain amount of it, and then they added the rest.
Because I know the one in Gladiator II is completely built.
It is okay.
It's completely built, but the one in this one, I wasn't.
They added in a lot of it with CGI, but they did build.
It's
a
still
certain-
impressive.
Was it built
It's
for
still
every scene
For
in Gladiator 2? Let's not discuss Gladiator 2.
No.
Yeah. All right, Nate. What's your biggest positive?
Well, first I'm gonna have to go with the music that Hans Zimmer does for this film
Take us into it.
because it is ethereal in a way that few films ever manage to be, especially Now We Are Free. That track
At the end,
pulls
man.
at a deep part of the soul, I think. What's really interesting about that track, Now We Are Free, I forget the name of the woman who sang that.
Lisa Gerrard.
Lisa Gerrard, thank you.
Yeah, give us the backstory on that.
Right, so John asked me, he was like, do you know what language she was singing that song in? And I had actually researched this because I was curious about it too. I thought it was probably Latin, given the context, and it sounds a little bit like some of the endings, but it's not.
It's not Latin, yeah.
It's not Latin. It's actually her like prayer language, right? Whoa. So this is, they asked Lisa Gerrard about it, and she said, this is the language that I use to communicate with God. And so basically she's singing in tongues, which is really interesting.
It goes along with the theme of how that song is kind of the embodiment of Elysium in the movie.
Like, it's about the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's fascinating, especially because of how, of course I can't speak for y'all, how just moving the song is.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, just a really cool.
It has a range of, but it has the action scene music, and it also has that music.
Yes, the rest of the music is also. I'm glad you pointed that out. The rest of the music is also very good. I was rereading the Odyssey recently, and I was listening to this soundtrack.
Oh, stop
and
it!
It just it works really
well.
well.
It also has that. It's gonna be a positive mind. The music. It has there's those scenes where it's just quietly in the background. And it adds it builds the atmosphere of the scene. Like, it's not loud, or it's just you can hear it in the background, and it's just it really helps create the atmosphere of the movie, I think. I mean, it is one of the. I think it's my favorite overall Hans Zimmer. He's had so many good ones though.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick out a favorite, but you know. Obviously, The Lion King is up there, but I mean, gracious, this one is so good.
Didn't Elton John do The Lion King?
He sung some songs. He had their songs. He did Can You Feel the Love Tonight? But Hans Zimmer did the music, the opening song.
The book music.
Yeah, like the soundtrack.
Yeah.
But yeah, Elton John did win he did the Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
Yeah.
How do you want me to go? So yeah, my biggest positive on this movie is the storytelling. I think it's honestly really impressive that they were. It's always interesting when a movie is not written by one person. It's written by three guys. Yeah. So it's because I'll go and talk a little bit about the backstory of it. So they had 40 pages of a script when they started filming this movie. They did not have a completed script. They basically had a story and that had been written by David Franzoni, and then they had 40 pages of a screenplay. And Russell Crowe was very hesitant to actually sign on because they did not have a full screenplay for the movie. And he went in on faith. He made a leap of faith because he wanted to work with Ridley Scott. And they pulled together, and they were continuously working on the screenplay throughout the movie. While they were filming, they were still touching up parts of the screenplay. And the fact that it turned out as good as it did is really crazy to me, because I think this movie has great storytelling. It does a great job of getting you invested in the main character. If you're not invested in Maximus, you don't care about the rest of the movie. It would just be boring Roman scenery, basically. But as soon as he starts talking about his family and stuff in that scene where he talks to Marcus Aurelius, that's when you're like, okay, I'm with this guy.
For me, it's the moment when he makes eye contact with the dog.
Yeah,
or that holds it for a little extra second.
Okay.
It goes hard.
Yeah, I mean, just from what I'm saying is from the beginning,
little moments.
You're connected with him.
Yeah.
And when they betray him, man, and Quentin says you'll meet your family in the afterlife, and that is just a brutal scene. And from that moment on, you're like, okay, we got to get revenge. And so you're invested in the main character, but not only does it have a great main character, it has a whole plethora of characters that add to the kind of the flavor of the movie.
But not too many.
Not too many, but you have Commodus as just and I love the acting as well for all of these characters. Commodus is just this great villain who actually has pretty good motivation for why he actually kills his father. I mean, it's a crazy thing to do, but he feels like his father never loved him. That's a very compelling thing in the movie. That's why he felt that he loved Maximus more than he loved him. Which then, that makes that kind of brings up a conflict between, okay, well, yeah, we love Maximus's character, and we like Marcus Aurelius, but Marcus Aurelius clearly made a bunch of mistakes. And he admits that he made a bunch of mistakes. But so Commodus is just this compelling villain who actually has good a little bit of justification for what he does that makes him compelling. And he's just so creepy. They wrote a creepy character, and Joaquin Phoenix delivered a creepy performance.
It's not creepy in the look at it long legs, Nicolas
No,
Cage.
that was a good movie.
Yeah, I never saw it.
That was good.
But it's creepy in the way like the pedophile down the street. Like, let's be clear about what the adjective.
He obviously is big into like incest and he wants to like get with his sister and everything. But it actually, I like how that
That's a great way to say it. Actually,
I liked how that plot line actually kind of impacted the movie. That it wasn't just there. Like it actually brings out his character, just how much of a weird guy he is.
Yeah.
And
to go on to that though too, like I think it's in some ways kind of a necessary thing too, right? Like it doesn't just contribute to the character, but if you remove that from the movie, he's just a weak man, right? But when you add that in, it's a person whose weakness has corrupted everything about him.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to include the thing that is so morally reprehensible to the modern viewer that it's like, oh, okay. And you have to do it in such a way too where it's not forceful. I mean, this is going to sound very like wrong, but he's so weak a man that even though he's right next to raping his sister, he's not, right? Yeah. Like that's what we've seen.
Very interesting, actually. Yeah.
Like,
but you know what's cool is the exact opposite for Maximus.
Right.
Like the perfect mirror image.
They are a great. That's back to the storytelling. It's a great contrast between the hero and your villain. But then to keep on going, talking about the cast of characters, you just have characters that just add in the spice. You know, you have Proximo, the gladiator trainer. Cool. Not the trainer, but the gladiator owner. And he's just this kind of guy who he's not a good man. He's not a good guy. But he has such a good arc because he learns to, he lost the ability to trust people, obviously, at some point in his life. He was a gladiator. But he has this connection to Marcus Aurelius. And when Russell Crowe and when Maximus tells him what happened to that tells him that Commodus killed him, that changes in him, and he learns to trust somebody again. And when he dies, his death's pretty brutal, man. I mean, and that's where we'll talk about all the the actor actually died before they finished filming his scenes. Another example of how they had to touch up the script as they were going, and you can clearly see that they had to use old dialogue for him in his last couple scenes, and actually digitally imposed his head onto a body double.
But it kind of worked out.
No, but yeah, his death still makes sense in the story. It doesn't yes, it would have been interesting to see what they were going to do with that if he hadn't died. But yeah, anyway, his character is just this really just interesting character that he's kind of a middleman. He's not good, he's not bad, but in the end, he comes through it. And you really feel the emotion of that. And then, of course, you have perhaps one of the more underrated characters, I think, in my opinion, is Lucilla. I think Lucilla is such an interesting character, and she contributes to the story so much. And it makes it so interesting because she has to pledge her loyalty to Commodus. And she's like, you said it was, she's like playing a game. And she has to, I will say one question I would want to know what y'all think. Why did you think, she does slap him and then she pledges her loyalty? What do y'all think that was all about?
I think, at least to me, one is as a sister and one is as a survivor.
Okay.
Right? You have that moment where she slaps him because the dude did something offensive to the memory of their father, right? Yeah. But she immediately pledges her loyalty. Why? Yeah. Because it's as her brother told her at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. Or Marcus Aurelius told her right before that. It's literally the scene right before. No, it's not even your brother needs you. Maximus tells her to the effect of, I think you've gotten really good at surviving, and her statement to him is, you haven't had to, or something along those lines, right? Yeah. And so at least to me, that's what the slaps him makes the pledge.
Y'all think that she knows that he probably killed him?
I don't think
it's never explicitly revealed.
Well, I don't think it really matters, and I think that's kind of the point. She's no idiot. Yeah. But her father was very old. Yeah. I think all she knows is that her brother's grabbing power, and she can have her suspicions about the rest of it. But
it's really interesting in the scene where she talks to Maximus, and he says as you wept for your father. Yeah. And that really brings up that innately the thing. And that brings up the question of whether or not she did know. I feel like she definitely knows something was not right.
Well, you know what was also continuously with that character? Whoever did costume design for that character alone,
you were mentioning that.
Yeah. So that was the third or fourth thing I noticed about what that woman was wearing the whole movie. Because, it's interesting. Oftentimes with the female characters in movies, particularly ones like this where all of the male wear is going to stay generally the same. Yeah.
The gladiator fit.
Right. Maximus's costume doesn't change all that much across the...
Other than when he goes from being a general to a slave.
Yeah, he's either shirtless, in a tunic, or with armor on, and that's really it, right? But they did a good job of a couple things. The first thing that was interesting, the royal wear that her and her brother were wearing in the opening scenes when they first come to battle, right? You know, Joaquin Phoenix's character, Commodus, is wearing this really long wolf's pelt.
Yeah.
Right? Which is really interesting, right? It's this very like kind of sheep and wolf's clothing kind of imagery, right? And the general was wearing a little bit of fur, but not much. Yeah. And the emperor was wearing fur, but she wasn't wearing any fur, if I remember correctly.
No, I don't think so.
Right? Or you get a little bit later on, and she's wearing this like orange dress, right? In the middle of the Senate, everyone's dressed in white. Even her emperor brother is dressed in white with some armor, right? Yeah. And she's there like negotiating the tension of everything, and kind of like soothing and kind of being there like a fire almost would be. And then, by the way, they bring that dress back at the very end.
Yeah, she wears it in the arena.
Right, exactly. In the arena where
the most famous scene
everything's there, exactly. And it's kind of this, at least to me, it was kind of this like mirror image of like warmth and comfort and bringing peace and trying to kind of be this reconciling.
But that's why she's such an interesting character. You're getting right at it, is because she is kind of, and she's in the probably the most precarious situation. Nate, you said like precarious situation of any of the characters.
Right.
She knows Commodus will not kill her because she's like so special to him. But at the same time, she can't obviously give away anything that she's doing. Right. She's in a plot against him, obviously. And I think the plot, the plot element, like the plot in the movie I'm talking about, works so well because it's like it builds up the tension of how you have the Gladiator games going on, and then you have underneath you have this plot going on to overthrow Commodus. And I really enjoy how the movie, from a storytelling perspective, shows the political like motivations for the gladiatorial games. Like Commodus uses the games to sway the people towards him. The Gracchus, one of the senators, says that Rome, and we'll talk about this in the themes, like Rome, that's a big question of the movie, and he says basically Rome is the mob, and he'll give them death, and they'll love him for it. It's like so the arena is a tool of the politicians. And
I think Steven said
that's such good storytelling, like a good device.
And Steven used the term wolf in sheep's clothing, and I think Nate and I, we were talking when we were watching the movie, and seeing this motif of like wolves throughout the movie.
The wolf howls when
there's
Marcus
a crazy moment where it's way in the background. I've never heard it before in my life until Nate and I heard it. Marcus dies.
It's when he's on his deathbed after he's died.
Yeah, he's already dead, and what's his name? Commodus comes up to Maximus and says, "Lament with me, brother, that our father is dead." And then you hear the wolf just in the background.
Nate,
it would technically in this instance be a sheep in wolf's clothing, though. I misspoke.
Oh, dang! I like that.
But
so
then again,
but just
the weakness idea.
Exactly. So like two interesting themes there.
So yeah, and then to finish up about the storytelling, I think the biggest positive of the storytelling is the fact that, like I said, you care about Maximus' character, and that drives the rest of the movie. So at the end of the movie, when he is able to go to Elysium, you actually care. Like, it's not just one of those movie scenes where you're like, oh yeah, that's cool, you got the happy ending. Yeah. It's actually a happy ending.
And how many happy endings are that the character dies?
Yeah, I know. That's what's so compelling about it. He's dying, that's what sets him free.
We're all like, oh.
That's what sets him free.
Yeah.
And so I just love the storytelling of the movie. It has so many different angles that it approaches it from, so many interesting characters that it creates, and I really just think it's cool that it came together with how many difficulties they had writing it.
Yeah.
It's really cool that it all came together like that. And also just with the screenplay, there's some just really good, not one-liners, but just like memorable quotes. Just like strength and honor that just get you fired up. Strength and honor. What we do in life echoes in eternity. I mean, just and they're not cheesy. Like they actually fit in those scenes. They don't feel out of place. Like I feel like in we love Kingdom of Heaven, but in Kingdom of Heaven, there's a few that just they stand out. They don't fit. Or even in like Alexander or like Troy. Troy is the one I'm thinking of. Troy has a bunch of one-liners that are kind of cool, but they're also really cheesy and they're out of place. This movie has one-liners that like work, and they really add to the characters. Like Strength and Honor embodies the character of Maximus. It's not just something he says. Like that's what he's all about.
Just like shadows and dust, like signify Proximo, like relationship with.
Yeah, Proximo is such a morally ambiguous guy. It's like shadows and dust. Nate, you gotta watch it kind of pretty quickly. So Shadow, that's a good point. He is so morally ambiguous that everything is shadows and dust to him. I just love the storytelling of the movie and the screenplay in general. Now, I will have one little negative about the screenplay in our negative section, but that's about it.
Speaking of,
any other positives for y'all? Like how about the action scenes? The battle scenes and stuff.
They're phenomenal.
Yeah, I know you say your favorite scene in the movie is the opening battle.
But the best scene of the movie is the opening battle.
Why do you think that is the best scene?
Well, I think Gavin could even talk about this a bit, how that's like the one accurate Roman battle scene in any movie ever.
Yeah, it's so rare to see like a really good Roman conflict. And there's like little nitpicky things, but generally, like the cavalry swooping in, the formations leading forward. Once they've broken the barbarian line, they all just draw swords and they just hack them down. And the artillery and arrows going over the top, and everything being really well coordinated. It was so satisfying.
One of my favorite parts about the battle scene is the action in the battle scene is just really well done and it's great.
But my fiance is sitting right here while we're watching this, and she comments when we were watching the movie. And she comments, it was like, she's like, oh, the music's really sad during this battle scene.
At the end, when they're finishing,
it's so heavy. Just like the action of the scene, so well complemented with this heavy tone of like what's happening. Like Pax Romana, this is what it looks like to get peace.
That's a big theme we can talk about. But my favorite part of the battle scene in the beginning is honestly not the action, but how it builds the characters up. Like it sets up Maximus to be a man who has the loyalty of his men, and he cares about his men. What's up?
Hey. Say hi to the podcast, Jaden.
Say hi to the podcast.
Lean into the podcast and say hi.
Guys, this is Jaden. Check him out at Jaden Forrest YouTube channel.
Yeah, please subscribe.
Anyway, I think the battle does a great.
You smelling good right now.
Thank you.
Walk in, making everything smell a little fresher.
John Gavin's.
I'm
John.
Nate. Nice to meet you, Nate.
Nice to meet you.
Nate. Yeah, Gavin.
Your Gavin's what?
Oh, just friends.
Yeah. We're reviewing
more than that.
Gladiator.
Whoa!
Amanda's right up there!
Chill. I'm not gonna make that joke.
Don't make that joke. We're still alive.
Anyway, basically, I like how the battle scenes actually aren't just for the action solely; they're actually for character development. But what about the action, like specifically the action of the battles? I really thought it was gritty. Like it's not like stylized.
No,
like, it feels real.
It isn't. It's really good, and they use the gladius in its traditional application. Yes, and slash. Yeah.
But
what I'll say honestly to sum up the positives, and I think y'all agree with this, is that basically every aspect of this movie is good.
Yeah. I do want to know what you think because I know you're into writing and just storytelling. What did you think about the story and just how it's crafted?
Well, you mentioned how well integrated it is with the two different plot lines of the struggle for Rome and also his adventures in the gladiatorial arena. Those are really well integrated, and so I think that's just a genius move by the writers.
How it's not just it's like his story, but also the story of Rome. Like it's
but they intertwine those things so that they're the same. They're different, but they're the same.
Yeah.
Love you, Jaden.
I thought you were trolling about the podcast. Wait, what's going on?
We're reviewing we have a historical movie podcast, and we're doing an episode of Gladiator.
Oh, it's freaking sick. What is this for?
YouTube.
You should follow it.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Let me see your setup real quick, if you don't mind.
So, Jaden and I almost went upstairs to ask you for some of your stuff because I saw the camera quality and I was like, ooh, Jaden would get some stuff to fix that right now, but...
Mates, this is like 16 pixels.
We have to keep that in.
No, you have to keep every interaction with Jaden in. Jaden is a beautiful, beautiful man, and we appreciate his presence here.
Thank you.
Since you're here, what do you think about the movie Gladiator in a few sentences? Have you seen it?
It sounds like a really cool title, and I think I'd enjoy it.
Seen it. Okay, he hasn't seen
You
it.
need to watch the podcast.
It's
Don't watch the podcast, they'll spoil it.
I'll watch it live. I'll watch it now.
There we go. Yes.
Anyway, but I wanted to also get your opinion on this on the screenwriting because I know you said you're English. You did an English minor.
Yeah.
So yeah, like what? Just like the writing and like the storytelling. Just like what do you think?
So
Because we've been talking about it.
one of the things like they talk about when you kind of are in your introductory literature classes for English is they talk about looking for echoes of symbolism all the time, right? Movies, it's very interesting because most symbolism isn't actually written into the dialogue. It's written into the imagery and the visuals, right?
Yeah.
And I pointed out like a couple few of those as like we were watching. Like I think one very striking set of symbols, it's a progression of a few, is right at the very end, right?
With her dress.
Huh?
You're gonna talk about her dress.
I'm not going to talk about her dress. I already talked about her dress. I can talk about her dress more. her dress is always like symbolically really.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, but there's a sequence of 3 visuals back to back to back that all kind of mirror the Passover story and the Passion story.
Wow.
Right?
Ooh.
So, but what's interesting about it is they're not necessarily in order, but it's kind of 3 things that in my mind are kind of supposed to point to this idea, and I haven't quite worked one out yet. But what you have is the words that they use for it, like in your basic literature class. Wow, look at that.
It's like a genuine setup if you want to like record it in 4K with good audio.
Absolutely.
We're halfway through it though.
Oh,
I'll edit it
I'll see you. I'll leave the.
We